Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session. In this class, we will be exploring a fascinating topic that sits at the intersection of pharmacognosy and modern biotechnology. The topic is nothing but edible vaccines. So, traditionally, pharmacognosy has focused on medicinal properties of our plants, but as the field evolves, now we see how plants are also being genetically engineered to act as a vaccine or factories, offering innovative solutions to global health challenges. Through this lecture, we will understand what are edible vaccines and how they are developed using transgenic plants and what is the mechanism of action and what are the advantages and limitations of edible vaccines over the traditional vaccines and some real world applications in this disease prevention. So let's begin our session by understanding what a vaccine and then the transition into how the plants can be used in this exciting content. So coming to the introduction of edible vaccines, a vaccine is a biological preparation that improves immunity to a particular disease. Then edible vaccine, as we know, traditional vaccines involves injections, cold chain logistics, and high production costs. So due to these disadvantages of traditional vaccines, so one idea will be evolves that what if we could eat our vaccines instead of taking the vaccines through injections? That's the idea behind the edible vaccines, an innovative concept that combines immunology, genetic engineering, and agriculture. In the edible vaccines, transgenic plants are used as a vaccine production systems, used as a vectors for the production of vaccines. That's why they are said to be edible vaccines. Edible vaccines are produced by inserting genes which are encoded antigens into the plants. When we consume these genetically modified plants, our immune system recognizes the antigens and develops immunity. So these antigens carefully selected to retain their immunogenic properties while ensuring the safety for human consumption. Initially thought to be useful only for preventing the infections of the disease, but it has also found applications in prevention of autoimmune diseases as well as the birth control and cancer therapy. So now edible vaccines are currently being developed for a number of human and also animal diseases. So here are some edible vaccines, different types of edible vaccines. So based upon the source of vaccine should be produced based upon their sources. These edible vaccines should be categorized into four different types. So those should be plant-based edible vaccines, fruit-based edible vaccines, as well as the microbial edible vaccines, as well as genetically engineered edible vaccines. In these different categories of edible vaccines, the first most category that is nothing but the plant-based edible vaccines. So these are produced by using genetically modified plants such as like the bananas, potatoes, tomatoes, and rice, which expresses antigens that trigger an immune response upon the consumption. And the second category of edible vaccines, that is a fruit-based vaccines. Certain fruits like papaya, strawberries, and grapes have been studied as a potential vaccine carriers due to their palatability as well as high nutrient contents. And the third category, that is nothing but microbial edible vaccines. Some probiotic bacteria such as Lactobacillus, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which have been engineered to express the vaccine antigens. And the last one, that is genetically engineered and edible vaccines. These vaccines involve advanced genetic modifications in plants and microorganisms to optimize antigen expression and as well as stability. So while we are producing any edible vaccines, what are the ideal properties to be satisfied by those edible vaccines? The edible vaccine should possess some ideal properties that those are nothing but they should be effective and also available at low cost. They should be affordable and they should be non-toxic or non-pathogenic. Then vaccination should be a simple, so they should be given through oral route rather than they should be given through injections or some other routes. And they should be produce very low levels of side effects, and they should not be contaminated in the environment, and they should be long lasting at the cellular immunities, and they should not cause problems in individuals with impaired immune systems. So these are the ideal properties that should be possessed by any edible vaccines. And now, what are the advantages of edible vaccines rather than this traditional vaccines. Edible vaccines have a number of potential benefits over the traditional vaccines. The first will be cost effective. So while in the production of traditional vaccines, the production cost will be very high when compared with the edible vaccines, because edible vaccines should be produced through traditional mechanisms. So that doesn't need any high cost for the production of these edible vaccines. So low production cost should be enough for production of edible vaccines when compared with the traditional vaccines. And next, needle-free administrations. So these edible vaccines should be given through oral route. So no need of giving through injections. So which can eliminate the risk of needle injuries and the contaminations. And the next advantage will be easy distribution. No need of any refrigeration for the storage of these vaccines. While in case of traditional vaccines, they need to be stored in refrigerators. They need very minus degrees of temperatures for storing of those. Otherwise, they will lose their stabilities. In case of these edible vaccines, they can be transported from one place to another place without any refrigeration storage conditions. And another one, enhanced mucosal immunity. It provides immune protection at the pathogen entry sites and eco-friendly. So it can reduce the medical waste and dependency on cold chain logistics. And the last advantage over the traditional vaccines is that is nothing but the culturally acceptable. That is nothing but they can be integrated into dietary habits for better compliance. So, and next, coming to the challenges and limitations of edible vaccines over the traditional vaccines, that is nothing but the dosage control. We should be ensuring that uniform distribution of the antigen content over the transgenic plants. That is the difficult task to maintain the uniform antigen expression in the plants, overall the plants. And the next challenging aspect is stability issues. Environmental conditions maybe sometimes degrade the antigen potency. And next, public acceptance. The concerns over the genetically modified food must be addressed. And regulatory barriers, that is nothing but approval process for edible vaccines are complex and country specific. Quality control aspect, ensuring the batch to batch consistency remains a challenge. So while when comparing with the traditional vaccines, these are the challenging aspects in the production of edible vaccines. That is, dosage control, stability issues, public acceptance, regulatory barriers, as well as quality control. So next, how to make an edible vaccines. Edible vaccines should be prepared by different process. One of the way to make an edible vaccines by using the Agrobacterium tumefaris method. So in this process, edible vaccine should be produced by collecting the transgenic, we need to collect the transgenic part of the plant. We need to, for example, if any plant that consisting of a transgenic part that is which is present in a leaf, we need to cut the transgenic part of the particular plant, and that will be exposed to the antigen containing bacteria. So this antigen gene will be inserted into the transgenic part of the plant. So for this insertion of this antigen into the plant part, we need to expose the leaf into the antigen gene. So by suspending this leaf part in a bacterial suspension, that bacterial suspension consisting of this antigen gene. So this after inserting this gene into this transgenic plant, that will be allowed to develop into a callus. So by this development of callus is done by exposing the leaf into an antibiotic antibiotic medium. Thereby the callus will be developed. This developed callus will be allowed to grow into a sprout and roots. And then this developed part of the plant will be transferred to the field. There it will be grown into a new plant, and this new plant will have the vaccine part. So this is a procedure for preparation of edible vaccines. So in this edible vaccine, the steps involved in the making of an edible vaccine is insertion of the antigen gene into the transgenic part of the plant, and this after insertion of the antigen gene into the plant, this plant will be allowed to develop, this transgenic part of the plant will be allowed to develop into a new callus. That new callus will be grown in a particular aseptic medium into a new part of the plant. This part will be transferred to the field. There it will be grown into a new plant. So this new plant will have its fruits. Those will be developed into vaccines. So this is the procedure for the production of vaccines. And now mechanism of action of edible vaccines. So coming to the mechanism of action of edible vaccines, how these edible vaccines will work after administration of these edible vaccines, after taking these edible vaccines through oral route into a person, how this will work. So after administration, after taking of these edible vaccines, so these edible vaccines will consisting of this antigen. Once the antigen will enter into the body, so these antigens will be, these M cells will transfer these antigens to the macrophages. These macrophages will displace the piece of antigen to the helper T cells. So these helper T cells will recognize these antigens and this will stimulate the B cells. So these stimulated B cells will activate it and will releases the antibodies. So these released antibodies will be present in the body, and whenever that real antigen will enter into the body, they will fight against this antigen and they will neutralize the antigens. So this is the initial response of the immune system whenever the antigen will enter into the body. So this initial response will be produced after insertion of this edible vaccine into the body. So thereby whenever this new disease antigen appear, disease agent will appear into the body, enter into the body. So at this entry path, whenever this virus will arise, so this M cells will recognize this antigens, and these bodies will these antigens will display transfer to the macrophages. Macrophages will displace the piece of antigens to the helper memory helper T cells. T cells will recognize these antigens and they will liberate some cytotoxic T cells. These cytotoxic T cells will neutralize these infected cells, and also these helper T cells will stimulate the memory B cells. These B cells will activated and produces some antibodies. These produced antibodies will quickly neutralizes these antigens. Thereby this virus, whenever this antigen will enter into the body, so that will be neutralized by the already producing antibodies and newly produced antibodies. Thereby this disease should be prevented. So this is a mechanism of action beyond these edible vaccines. So here are some plant species that should be used as an edible vaccines. So many plant species are being explored for edible vaccine production, each offering unique advantages. Here is a summary of some key examples. For example, like some few plants which should be having some transgenic plants. They can be turned into edible vaccines. Examples of some plants are banana, potato and tomato. So these banana, potato, tomato, which are having, they should be produced, which are having antigens. They should be these vaccines should be produced against the diseases like hepatitis B and rotavirus, and also cholera. And some other examples like rice, lettuce, tobacco, carrot, maize, alfalfa, soybean, spinach, peas, mushrooms, barley, chickpeas, sweet potatoes, cucumber, papaya, grapes, strawberries, watermelon, and cassava. So these plant species can be used as a transgenic plants for the production of edible vaccines because of their unique advantages and properties. Here are some applications of edible vaccines. The applications of edible vaccines, that is nothing but these edible vaccines should be produced in the plants of they should be used used against the infectious diseases as well as respiratory diseases as well as the veterinary diseases, and also in the case of cancer prevention and some other applications of antioxidant edible vaccines, that is nothing but allergic treatment as well as autoimmune diseases. In case of infectious diseases, that is hepatitis B, cholera, norovirus, and rotavirus. For these infectious diseases, we can use the transgenic plants, that is potatoes, tomatoes, and also bananas. In case of respiratory diseases like influenza and COVID-19, so ongoing research still going on for developing a vaccine against this. Ongoing studies are still going on for the developing edible vaccine which works against this COVID-19. And coming to the veterinary diseases like rabies and foot and mouth diseases, oral rabies vaccines for worldwide are, there will be a lot of problems under this category. So there will be a number of plants. They can be used as transgenic plants. They can be used as transgenic plants. And for whereas in case of other applications like allergy treatment and autoimmune disease, edible vaccines have a potential to help desensitize individuals to allergens, thereby minimizing allergic reactions. And other autoimmune diseases, the ongoing research is investigating how edible vaccines can be modulate immune responses, offering promises therapeutic approaches for autoimmune conditions. So there will be not only these are a few applications, there will be a vast number of applications. Still, some ongoing research will be going on for developing a new edible vaccines. They will be fight against a new number of advanced diseases. Here some developed here are some developed edible vaccines. They will be fight against different targeted pathogens like enterotoxinogenic E. coli, Vibrio cholera, hepatitis B, as well as Norwalk virus, rabies, foot and mouth diseases, and also different diseases. So these are the few transgenic plants like a banana, potato, tobacco. These transgenic plants will be used having their antigenic gene expression to fight against these targeted pathogens. So with this topic, finally, to summarize today's class, edible vaccines are genetically modified plants expressing antigens. They stimulate the immunity when consumed without infections. They offer a promising future in disease prevention, especially in resource-limiting settings. Thank you for all. With this topic, we have concluded that. I hope you may get some idea regarding the outline of edible vaccines. So if you need, I will provide the detailed lecture on these edible vaccines. Once again, thank you.